Okay, I want to offer a suggestion to some of you. The suggestion may solve a problem you might be starting to have. And when I first offer this suggestion, you're probably going to be like, no, for various reasons. And then there's going to be another part where you're going to go, no, for reasons I'll get into. Bear with me, because I'm going to explain why you might not be right about thinking that's not for you. And with the other one, it's going to be worth it to you. So anyhow, here's the problem first. You like to read. You've been reading a very long time, and you've read all sorts of stuff. And while you have your old favorites, and even some of your old favorites are still writing stuff, and it's still good, you enjoy it. And you enjoy new stuff that comes out from the big publishers. You are starting to get to a point where more and more often you are having this little itch, and the itch is harder and harder to scratch these days. And that itch is you want something new. You want something different. And for some of you that are of a certain age, you know it used to be easier to solve that, because there were these old mom and pop bookstores, and the people that ran those, particularly the one that you found that really worked for you, they may have not stocked everything. They may have been kind of a specialty store. They stocked only certain genres because the owners were big fans and the people that worked there were big fans, and they kind of stocked their dream library. And you could be reading a lot of the big popular mainstream stuff that you like and I like and everybody else likes. But then you would kind of get that itch, and it's like you'd go in and say, hey, I've been reading a lot of X, Y, and Z lately, and I still want to read stuff like that. But I want something like a little different, a little new, something that maybe comes at it from a different perspective. And you would talk to them for 4 or 5 minutes, maybe 6, and that would end up with the two of you in front of a bookshelf, and they'd pull a book off and go, this is exactly what I think it is you're looking for. And they would tell you why, and you'd buy the book, you take it home, and it was exactly what you needed. It was the type of thing you liked and the type of thing you had been reading, but it was just a little bit different. It was just enough different, just enough new that it scratched that itch. And it's harder to do that these days because a lot of the mom and pops are gone and the specialty bookstores are gone, and you go to one of the big bookstores, a lot of times the off-the-beaten-path stuff isn't on the shelves. And if it is, you're in this giant bookstore, you're looking for this stuff, and you can't ask some of the people in there because they might not actually be readers. And if they are avid readers, they're not readers of the type of stuff you like. So, of the 3 or 4 employees that they have on duty at any given time, you might not be able to find somebody to help you. So what do? Well, online, no matter what it is that you do online, can be kind of hit and miss. Sometimes very miss. So what do? Well, here's my suggestion. And like I said, at first you're probably going to go, no. There are these things called popular culture conventions. From this point forward, just called conventions because that's how we refer to them. Conventions specialize in all sorts of things. And you may have seen an advertisement in your area for a convention. It would have a name that kind of identifies it as something associated with science fiction or fantasy or horror or whatever. But maybe you were sitting in your living room watching a TV show that you liked, and a commercial break comes on, and suddenly there's this loud DJ voice saying, hey, come on down to, whatever location in the city, and, we've got this actor and this actor and this actor from these old shows and these old movies, and, maybe this comic book writer, and they'll be talking about, there'll be costume contests, and there'll be trivia contests, and there'll be door prizes, and there will be certain types of events. And while they're talking about all this, there's this 30-second montage of images of people dressed up as superheroes and supervillains and Star Wars and Star Trek characters and video game characters and all of this stuff jumping around on screen. And you're looking at all that and just thinking, yeah, no, not my thing. And you put it out of your mind immediately. Not every convention is the same. You'll probably find a little bit of everything at a lot of conventions, but not every convention is the same. They differ in not only their size, but in their primary focus. Some conventions are just super heavy for one genre. You'll find something that's real big on horror, and a lot of it is going to be movies and television, and then some books. But you'll also find a lot of conventions, they kind of touch on everything, but they have a very strong literary component to their offerings. And what I want you to do is look in your area, and this can be helped if you have a friend or a family member or a coworker, someone you know of who talks about conventions. Ask them for help to narrow this stuff down. Find a convention in your area that's a small to medium-sized convention and that is very heavy on the literary component. Because a part of being heavy on the literary component is you will find that there are a lot of writers of books that are guests at that convention. I'm going to give you two of them from my area that kind of templates for what you want to look for. And they have online, they have websites, so you can look them up, see what they look like, see what their guest list is like. One of them's a Virginia convention. Been happening in Williamsburg for years. It's going to be in Richmond next year. It's called RavenCon. One word, RavenCon. Raven like Edgar Allan Poe. Literally. That's what it's from. RavenCon is a smaller convention. It covers a lot of pop culture stuff, but it has a very heavy literary grounding to it and influence in it. ConCarolinas, one word, con like convention, C-O-N, Carolinas, like North and South Carolina, but the plural of Carolinas. ConCarolinas is in Charlotte, North Carolina. It also does a lot of the pop culture stuff, the big, shiny pop culture stuff and the costumes and things, but it has an extremely heavy literary aspect and presence. If you find a convention like these in your area, you find out it's going to be in a little while, save up some money. Number one, you're going to be saving up money because you're going to be doing some shopping. The other is you're going to need to buy a day pass. If you've never been to a convention, I wouldn't suggest getting like the full weekend pass. Number one, it's going to cost you more money, and you might not want to go for the full weekend. You don't want to go for 3, or if it's a holiday, 4 days, holiday weekend. You're just going to want to go to check it out for one day. So you're going to want to find a convention that sells like a one-day pass or a one-day membership. Now, this is the other thing where you're going to kind of go, no. On a small to medium convention, that can cost you $30 to $45. You immediately recoiled because you're like, I'm not going to pay $30 to $45 for the privilege of shopping, and I have no idea what I'm going to... Just bear with me. Trust me. It's going to be worth it. And I'm speaking from experience, personal experience here. It's going to be worth it to you. Find one of these conventions, save up the money, go on a Saturday, get yourself a one-day pass. What you're going to do is you're going to go in and walk around. Do not ask people, hey, where's the place where I can buy stuff? Because they're going to send you to the dealer's hall or the dealer area. And while you will find books in some really large conventions that I would not recommend you go to as a first-time convention goer, because it can be really overwhelming. You will have like some of the smaller book publishers and all in there because they just keep everything in that section. But in a lot of the smaller conventions, small to medium conventions, the dealer's area is mostly going to be your games, your figures, your oddball knickknacks. And you will find some people in there selling books, but it's going to be books that you can mostly find in Barnes & Noble and Books A Million as either new or used books. What you want to do, instead of going to a dealer's area, is you just want to walk around the convention. Because as you're walking around the convention floor, you'll notice in a lot of the hallways and the walkway areas and the big open sections, there are all of these tables up against the wall. And behind these tables, there are individuals, and they are promoting whatever it is that they're there to promote. Some of them podcasts, some of them independent films, some of them games they've created, but a lot of them at a convention like a RavenCon or a ConCarolinas, what they're there to promote is their books. You will find that the convention has a number of people as guests who are writers, and writers of the type of thing that you like. And those writers, on top of being there for other things that they have to do at the convention as guests, their big reason for being there is they want to promote their books, and they will take time to talk to you. You will walk up to a table, you will see a bunch of books that looks like your kind of thing. You can actually start talking to the writer and telling them, like you used to be able to do in the old mom and pops and the little specialty bookstores, hey, you know, I love X, Y, and Z, and I've been reading a lot of this, and I'm looking for something like this, but maybe something that comes at it in a different way, something new, something different, something that scratches that itch that I've been having lately. And they'll know exactly what you're talking about. And they will be able to help fine-tune your selection, and you will walk away from the table with a book that you will enjoy, that you have never heard of the writer, you have never heard of the book, or you've never heard of the series that they have. And by the way, that's not because they're not good. It's because they're published through a lot of small publishers. And you'll even find some of the small publishers at these conventions, like up and down the East Coast, from Central to Southeast Coast and a little inward, you'll find like Falstaff Books, which is a small publisher with a ton of different books and writers, and they have a website. And I'll post links underneath. If you're hearing this on YouTube, there should be links under the video. If you found this on the blog, there'll be links in the blog post. But Falstaff Books is a smaller publisher. The reason that this publisher and the reason that all of these writers are at these smaller conventions is because they're not being promoted by a giant publishing company with a ton of money that can afford these giant promotional pushes and the TV commercials and the giant banners that are going to go into every bookstore in the country and get them that table that's right there the second you walk in the door in your Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, or whatever your local big chain is. They use the convention circuit as a big tool in their promotion. And a lot of them are really good writers. And even though they're smaller press writers from smaller publishers and they're writers you haven't heard of, a number of them have actually won awards that are fairly big awards in the publishing field. They are very, very good writers. They're just not the writers who are getting put into big chain bookstores. And they are the writers who are writing the stuff that you're looking for because it's the stuff you enjoy, but it's just different enough that it scratches that itch. They're coming at like the tried and true stories from a slightly different perspective because they're fans and they like that stuff, but you know, maybe they're writing the stuff that they wanted to find and couldn't find before on the bookshelves. And some of them are coming at it from really different perspectives because they are the voices that are not given the same representation by the large book publishers, because the large book publishers, they live and die on huge turnover, so almost everything they really promote is what they think is going to be the big commercial mainstream success. And so some other voices, even if it could be a big commercial mainstream success, they're not going to take that chance because they need to make all of that money, and this is their tried and true formula. Tried and true formula. So you're not going to find these voices. You'll find them at the conventions. You'll find people writing books that you will love and that you will enjoy for years, and you will go home with a small book bag full of books. And I know this for a fact because that is what I do. Since 2010, 2011, every year, with the exception of 2020 for obvious reasons, the majority of the money I have spent on purchasing books I have spent at conventions throughout the year. And I come home with a ton of books from conventions, and I have almost never been, matter of fact, I've never actually been disappointed. There's been some that I've been like, oh, that's kind of good. It's just not going to be a favorite of mine. But I've never found one where I was disappointed. And I have found writers who are now new longtime favorites of mine. And I have found publishers who I know I can go to again and again as they find new writers. And I'm going to enjoy their work. And that's something that's going to make it worth it to you right there. Even if you only ever go once, even if you decide that one time was enough, you came home with a bunch of books, you know what else you're going to come home with? All of those writers and all of those small publishers, they're going to have bookmarks that are basically business cards, and they will also have actual business cards. You're going to come home with a ton of information about writers and publishers that you didn't have before, that you never heard of before, that you will then be able to look for online, even through Amazon. A lot of these guys, Falstaff has a publisher page on Amazon. A lot of the writers that I've encountered at RavenCon and ConCarolinas, you can find them on Amazon. And you can go straight to the source of their own websites. But you will be able to go home with a whole bunch of new books and a ton of information that even if you never go back to a convention, will serve you quite well for many years to come when it comes to finding new voices, new books, something new and different that you love and that you will enjoy. There's also some other benefits that you might want to think about. You may not think of yourself as a convention person because, as I said, you've seen them from the outside in, and it looks like, a lot of that stuff that you really don't want to spend a lot of time on. But you know what? Try this. Try to see if you can make the day pass worth it to you. When you get to the point you're doing the ceremonial exchange of product for money, and they're handing you that book and you're handing them the cash and you're about to walk away, don't just walk away. Ask the writer or the small publisher who's sitting behind their table, or the editor from the small publisher, what are you doing today? What are you doing for the rest of the day? And you may get an answer that doesn't interest you because they have to do stuff at the convention. They're guests. They have commitments to the convention. Part of those commitments is they will do panels, discussions in front of a live audience. The discussions are about 50 minutes long, 50, not 15, 50 minutes long, and talking about a specific subject. And the writer or the editor or the publisher may answer you, well, I'm going to be in that room over there in about an hour, and we're going to be talking about the future of the Marvel and DC movies and where we think they're going to go from here. Okay, you're not interested in that. But just as likely at a RavenCon or ConCarolinas type of convention, they'll sit there and tell you, well, we're going to be in that room over there in about 45 minutes. And me and several of these writers that are actually here right now, at that table, and we're going to be talking about the importance of bringing new voices into speculative fiction, into the mainstream of speculative fiction, or talking about the importance of, drawing on like these traditional storytelling sources and mythologies and legends that have kind of been ignored in the mainstream, and bringing those to the forefront, and that way creating stories that are the type of stories that we've been reading for years, but that now have that kind of fresh component. They've got that fresh coat of paint. They feel new again, and maybe they don't follow the same rules, so you can't figure out where everything's going because you've read it 100 times before. And you may get answers like that. And you may get answers that are like, oh, that's actually something I want to listen to. And you'll go and you'll sit down and you'll enjoy it. And by the way, they're interactive. They will take questions from the audience. So if something suddenly occurs to you and you're like, ooh, this is an idea or a question that I really want, when they're taking questions, you raise your hand and now you're part of the panel. So there are other things to do. There are performers that do music. They're musical acts, and they cater their stuff to the type of things that will work well at that convention. So you may find someone you enjoy listening to, and you sit down and you have a drink and you have something to eat to kind of break up your day, and you listen to this really fun musical act. And you may even discover that you like them enough that you want to get one of their CDs, so you go home with something else new that you would have never have known about before. And possibly the best thing of all, you might meet some people there. You know, you're shopping, you're looking for something, you're talking about something to someone, and somebody else is like, oh yeah, there's XYZ, and they like the same thing as you. And you may kind of make a decent little connection with them, and guess what? You know, now you've got a friend who at the very least is someone you communicate with email or social media. And they like the stuff you like, and they like reading that. And you might make more than one friend like that. And slowly you'll start building your own little kind of book forum and sharing information on, hey, I found this new person or this new publisher. And that will help you in the years to come to scratch that itch. Even if ultimately you only do this once, you just ever do it the one time, I don't think you're going to regret it. You're going to find it a useful endeavor at least the one time, and possibly a very fulfilling endeavor, because I think you're going to come home with a lot of stuff and a lot of new names that you're going to be enjoying for years to come. And honestly, I don't think it's going to be just the once. If you go and you find the right convention, you may not want to do 4, 5, 6 conventions a year. You may not want to travel to other states to do a big convention, but you may want to do this convention or these 2 conventions in your area every year when they come to town. Because you're going to find out that no, you're not a convention person when it comes to those giant, big, glossy, pop culture of the moment things. But this kind of convention, it's kind of your thing. But it's going to be up to you ultimately. But like I said, even if you only go once, you're not going to regret it. And you're going to end up finding some wonderful writers and some wonderful books, some wonderful publishers that you're going to enjoy for years to come. And maybe, just maybe, you'll get the convention bug, and who knows, I might see you at one of those small conventions one of these years. So think about giving it a try. And if you're not sure you want to, like I said, I'm going to include some links. Check out the links. Look at the conventions that I think are kind of a template for the type of things in your area you want to find. And give a look at the publisher link. I'll give you a link for Falstaff. And you can see what their kind of stuff is at least. So until next time, take care.